Here's why donations to nonprofits should not be tax deductible. Charitable tax deductions force taxpayers to subsidize other people's charitable preferences, while giving nonprofits artificial advantages over potentially more efficient for-profit alternatives. Currently, donations to 501c3 organizations, including religious institutions, educational organizations, hospitals, scientific research groups, and various social service charities, qualify for tax deductions. Donors can deduct up to 60% of their adjusted gross income for cash donations and receive dollar-for-dollar reductions in their taxable income. The system functions as taxpayer-funded charity. When someone donates $1,000 to their preferred cause and deducts it from their taxes, other taxpayers effectively subsidize that donation. A high earner in the 37% tax bracket saves $370 in taxes, meaning the public subsidizes more than one-third of their charitable giving. The deduction allows wealthy taxpayers who itemize deductions and face higher marginal rates to receive larger government subsidies for their charitable preferences than middle or lower class donors. A millionaire's donation to an elite university receives a larger taxpayer subsidy than a teacher's donation to a homeless shelter. Charitable tax deductions force citizens to subsidize causes they never chose to support, and that some might consider wasteful, misguided, or even harmful. A taxpayer opposed to a particular nonprofit's cause nevertheless helps subsidize donations to that institution through the tax code. The deduction also creates severe market distortions by giving nonprofits artificial advantages over for-profit organizations pursuing similar or identical missions. Consider education. Nonprofit universities receive tax-deductible donations that effectively subsidize their operations, while for-profit educational institutions providing similar education receive no such advantage. Students might pay comparable tuition to both, but the nonprofit benefits from donor funding that costs the donor less due to the tax deduction. This extends across numerous sectors. Nonprofit hospitals compete with for-profit hospitals, yet only donations to nonprofits receive tax advantages. Nonprofit research organizations compete with for-profit R&D companies. Nonprofit social service providers compete with for-profit alternatives that might deliver similar services. Private companies already address many problems that nonprofits tackle. For-profit hospitals, educational institutions, research companies, job training centers, addiction treatment facilities, and elder care providers operate alongside their nonprofit counterparts. The tax code shouldn't handicap for-profit solutions simply because of their legal structure. Nonprofits eligible to receive tax-deductible donations may face weaker financial discipline, potentially leading to waste and inefficiency, as they can rely on the tax advantages their donors receive to shield them from for-profit competition. Consider this example. A nonprofit teaches low-income children to read at a cost of $10 per student, while a for-profit organization provides the same service for $9 per student. A donor in the 37% tax bracket faces a distorted choice. A $1,000 donation to the nonprofit costs the donor only $630 after tax savings, enabling 100 students to receive reading instruction. However, that same $1,000 could teach 111 students if given directly to the more efficient for-profit organization. The tax deduction artificially makes the less efficient nonprofit more cost-effective to the donor, even though society would be better served by directing resources to the more efficient for-profit provider. The current system distorts the allocation of scarce resources by creating an artificial advantage for nonprofits. Two organizations could pursue identical missions with identical results, but only the nonprofit receives indirect public funding through tax-deductible donations. Additionally, wealthy donors can give to prestigious institutions like elite universities, museums, or cultural organizations that primarily serve affluent communities. Hardworking teachers, police officers, firefighters, welders, and construction workers should not be forced to subsidize institutions like Harvard, which has a $53 billion endowment. The policy also represents a significant revenue loss. Charitable deductions cost the federal government tens of billions annually in foregone revenue, requiring either higher taxes on others, increased borrowing, or reduced public services. Some may argue that private nonprofits do a better job of caring for the vulnerable than the government. Setting aside whether that is true, let's assume that it is. This would still call for massively reducing the number of nonprofits eligible for tax-deductible donations, since no one should seriously argue that giving to institutions like Harvard or other elite universities constitutes caring for the vulnerable. Even if eligibility were restricted to homeless shelters, food banks, and similar organizations, two moral problems would still remain. First, it would still force taxpayers to subsidize the charitable contributions of others. And second, it would still give an artificial advantage to nonprofits that may or may not be as efficient as for-profits in achieving the same ends. Eliminating charitable deductions would create a level playing field where organizations succeed based on their effectiveness in solving real-world problems. Nonprofit and for-profit organizations would compete on more equal footing, potentially driving innovation and efficiency in addressing social problems. Citizens could still support causes they value, but they would bear the full cost of their contributions rather than forcing other taxpayers to subsidize their giving. A simpler tax system without charitable deductions would eliminate these distortions while treating all taxpayers and organizations more fairly. Nonprofits could still succeed by delivering results that exceed those of for-profit companies, but the government should not implicitly subsidize them by making donations tax deductible. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and share this video with a friend.